So this year, we're super excited. We have kind of gotten our Hope Loud team together and just really prayed about what God wanted to do. So we are taking it to the Rylander. I am super excited about the opportunity. There's something just emotional to me about being able to bring the gospel to the center of our hometown. I think downtown is beautiful. We wanted something a little more intimate this time. So we're doing it at the Rylander. We're doing it as a Christmas concert this year. So it's going to be free still. We're just offering it free for the community. So Blanchard Photography is going to be there. She's one of our big sponsors this year. She's volunteering her time. Santa's going to be there. We have a gift for all the kids that come in, and then we're kind of partnering with downtown for some special like Christmas treats and Christmas giveaways to everybody that comes, along with some little savings cards that we'll kind of have for the community. So I think this is a perfect time, is just to I love Sean's coming back this year. I kind of really toyed with that idea, but I thought maybe if it's Christmas, it's going to look a little different anyway. And then we're going to kind of share the Christmas story, and just have that opportunity for people to come in and it just be free and be in a place like the Rylander. I think a lot of people haven't gone to a lot of shows there. So to be able to sit there and see it, I think is really powerful. So we're super excited to see what God does there. I'm excited about that.
Welcome to the Americus Podcast, where we pursue what it means to become a next level neighbor, creating a place we enjoy with the people we love. Today, I am joined by Amanda Anderson. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Now, Amanda is the Center Director for the Hands of Hope Pregnancy Resource Center. She lives in Americus. She's been here for the last 12 years, and she's married to Jay Anderson, and they have two daughters, Madeline and Meredith. So, Amanda, I have got a chance to hear about you with some of my friends that I've got a chance to meet. So now we're kind of putting the circles together.
Yes,
so
yes.
That's really great. I've been trying to get to the facility. So hopefully next month I'll be able to do that. So we're going to be talking about the Hands of Hope. We're going to be talking a little bit about an event that's coming up as well. Yeah. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about you. Yeah. So you're not from Americus like me, right? We're not natives here.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about you growing up. Where were you born?
So Virginia, Lynchburg, Virginia. A lot of people know it from Liberty University is in Lynchburg. It was not as big when I was growing up there, but I moved from there to Pulaski, Virginia. It's near Virginia Tech, Blacksburg area.
Okay.
Very small, very rural, kind of like Americus.
Yeah. What was your age when you moved?
I was probably maybe 4 when I moved from Lynchburg. Okay. And then I was in Christiansburg, and then kind of we didn't stay long in Christiansburg, maybe a year or two. So Pulaski was probably my longest place that I lived, most consecutively. And from 6th grade on until I graduated.
Was it moving for work or family?
My mom and dad got a divorce when I was 2, and we stayed in Lynchburg for a while, and my mom remarried, and that kind of moved us to Christiansburg, Roanoke area. And then when I was, how old was I? I feel like I was maybe 6 when she met my stepdad, and they dated for 6 years, and then got married when I was 12. He was previously married before, and she was too. So I think they really just wanted to make sure this was it. Yeah. And then we moved to Pulaski because that's where he was from. Okay. And mom got a job at a hospital. So very rural community. Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest differences when I think about it is my high school, I graduated with 388 people. Yeah. And even though we were kind of the size of Americus, we were more of a tri-county. So our football stadium could hold 10,000 people. You know, our sporting events wanted for nothing. You didn't fundraise a whole lot. It was on Friday night, no matter what age you were at a Friday night football game. So that's probably a little different because there's different schools, here where it was kind of just one lump sum there. Yeah. So it felt bigger, even though I feel like it's very rural like this.
Yeah, yeah. So did you say that you had siblings or?
Yes, I have one brother, and Matthew. He is from my mom's second marriage, so same mom, different dads. We're 5 years apart.
All right.
So yeah, I mean,
and you were the older, correct?
Yes.
So
yes.
you set the rules, right? You set the standard.
He has a mind of his own. He never would follow my rules. So.
Okay. They were good rules, I would hope. Right?
Yeah, they were, you know, but he was big into sports, and I did a lot of church activities. I played a little soccer growing up, but he was definitely an athlete. So you know, our interests were a little different, but we did get along.
Absolutely. So were you an extrovert, an introvert? Tell me a little bit about your dynamics.
I feel like I was really shy and introverted when I was like young, like, you know, like elementary. I think that something happened in like middle school, and I just got around the right crowd that kind of pulled it out of me. Yeah. So I was kind of a lot of fun, very much the life of the party, but in a good like Christian sense. Me and my group of friends were always the Valley Harvest girls because our church was Valley Harvest. And we were really doing everything in our church. We were really involved in our youth group, and our friends, our church did a lot of like big activities for youth. So we were always known that like, hey, come, that's Amanda's church. She's doing this big event. So they would come. Yeah. They didn't always stay, you know, to like every Wednesday night. But when we would have a big event, they would come, and they knew who to come and ask when we were doing something, because we just always were doing something. That's great. So, yeah. That's great. I became more extroverted the older I got, I think. I think.
So other than serving and doing some events, did you do some other extra, you know, activities? What was interesting? Any sports or anything like that? I loved shopping. I feel like that was a sport for me. I loved shopping. I loved like scrapbooking. I loved just like, I don't know, I feel like I'm an old soul at heart because I just loved like Sundays when we would come back to Virginia, or not back to Virginia, but back to Lynchburg where the rest of my family was. You know, we would all go to church as a family, and we would kind of have lunch at one of my great aunt's house, and we would all sit around the table. There was just a lot of hospitality there. And a lot of like all these people. I mean, I remember like going out the door at church, and she would be like, do y'all have somewhere to go? Y'all gonna go eat? If you don't have plans, you know, come to my house. You know, the door's always open. And she never married, and she kind of lived in the home that was hers as a little girl. She had 9 siblings, and, you know, they would, she was the only one that stayed, and she just hosted and loved to do that. So I feel like I would, in high school, it's funny because when I look back, I'm like, I was the host. Like we're literally in high school, and I'm like, are we going to do a New Year's Eve party? Because if we are, I feel like I should plan it. And it wasn't like, who's bringing the keg? You know, this was like, let's have who's signing up for what appetizer. Let's you know, like let's have, it was like the Southern lady in me, I guess. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together until, you know, you look back and you're like, I was so them, just because that's what was set before me. You hosted well. So I think that made a big impact. I liked cooking, that type of thing. And I mean, people were empowering you to do that, right? People saw that you had a really great skill at that, and they wanted to put you to work, and you're just like, all right.
My friends were always like, yeah, we should do that. Probably talk to Amanda. You know, senior prom, it was like, I don't know what our plans are. Amanda's probably already set up the dinner. We'll just all, she's probably made the reservation.
That's right. I was the planner. You had the first Facebook group page ever existed, probably. You're just like, I figured it out. I'm setting the schedule. We're going to do it. No, that's amazing. And I think that's so, it is a Southern thing, you know. So my family's from Minnesota, Wisconsin area, you know, and there are, you know, I always kind of define it as they're harder on the outside, but really, really warm and sweet on the inside. Right. Where sometimes in a Southern context, it might be really soft on the outside, and then sometimes a little hard on the inside. But no, it's a beautiful thing. And so sometimes as I'm meeting new people, I'm trying to figure out kind of what because if you start inviting people to your house and start saying, hey, you can come, they're like, what's going on here? What's wrong with you?
Well, the funny thing is, like in Virginia, obviously I'm in Georgia now. In Virginia, we would consider ourselves Southern. We feel like we're Southern. But when I came to Georgia, I was like, oh, we're not Southern at all. Like here, people love to connect. They love to connect a dot. If you go to church with somebody, in Virginia, they may be interested in connecting a dot because, you know, a church family is a little more intimate. But if you were to run into somebody at Walmart and say, hey, you know, Amanda's getting married, they'd be like, oh, I'm so happy for her. I'm glad she's happy. They would not say, now, who is it? Now, whose son is that? Now, is he married to? I mean, here it's like the family tree, which is precious now that I know it. But before it was like, why are they so interested in that? Because in like Virginia, you're just kind of like, you could go down that road. I really personally don't care.
That's right.
because I probably don't know him anyway, but I'm glad you're happy. So I think the Southern, like the hospitality is in the church, but I don't know if like outside of that, I mean, people care for each other. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. That's just a little more looked at as nosy. Now that I've been down here, I know people's intentions are not that. I just didn't grow up around that.
That's right.
So the first question was never like, now who are you married to? But I feel like everywhere I go, that's the first question here. And then they want to connect the dot on like his great aunt's grandmother. And I'm just like, I really don't. And I constantly am like smiling. I'm like, I'm not really sure if Jay's family went back that far. And if they were really, you know, like, I feel like they're asking me for information that I don't have. But the funniest thing is they keep asking. They're like, but are you sure? And I'm like, I think so. I think that was the biggest like culture shock is in Virginia. We do consider ourselves Southern, but we let it go at some point. We don't care.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
In a nice way.
Right.
So I just think that's funny. That's probably the biggest difference with we're both Southern, but it's more Southern here. Yeah. That hospitality figure.
I love it. I love it. So tell me a little bit about your mom and your stepdad and the kind of the dynamics, you know, so you're growing up 6 years old, like kind of working through that. I mean, you have this great desire to be with people, to schedule people, to make sure that other people feel safe and welcomed, to make sure that everyone has a job to do.
Right.
Where is this coming from?
My mom was always like, they didn't grow up super wealthy. They always had what they needed. My grandfather worked outside the home. My grandmother worked inside the home. My aunt and my aunt is like a second mother to me. So her and I are really, really close. And it's just her and my mother. Yeah. They are like super close, both really well educated. They both got a full ride scholarship. You know, it was just like if you wanted to go to school, the extra money wasn't really there. So both really intelligent. I saw my mom kind of, you know, experience this divorce. And I guess back then I didn't really realize how long they had been married when they got a divorce. You know, they were married for 8 years before they had me. And then, you know, I think that he was unfaithful. So I think that was hard. I think that she was also in a different culture because my mom's American. My father is Iranian, full blood. So he grew up in Iran and then moved to, I think when he was like 12, his parents are super, super wealthy. They sent him to boarding school in London because that's what you did if you had money back then. It was just the school system was better. And then after that, he actually was coming to Lynchburg College for undergrad and his master's. So he was in his master's program when him and my mom met. And I think that talking back about like my mom and that, I think that she was young. She was very much in love. I remember one of her stories was like, we were dating and he bought me a BMW and I just, you know, not coming from a lot. I was just like, what in the world? You know, it was just very doting. And I think that, you know, they just, I don't know. I think that she was super in love. So red flags maybe didn't come up. And his family was Christian, which I think is incredible because that doesn't happen a lot over there. But his parents came in and like, you know, my mom had this wonderful relationship with them. She had to because when they came for months at a time. Yeah. Because you don't just come for a couple of weeks from Iran. Yeah. So I hate that culture is kind of, I don't know a lot about that culture. Yeah. But with my mom, I feel like she was just always really empowering. And her second marriage, I don't remember a ton looking back because I think my grandparents really kept me from that. Like I wasn't in school yet. So I think it was easy to like, why doesn't she just stay with us for the weekend? But I think that when my mom and dad got a divorce, mom was pretty broken. And I think just thought, you know, back then divorce was just such a taboo. Like nobody got divorced. And it wasn't that it was like out of the public eye. My dad owned a lot of restaurants. He was very, very wealthy. I mean, we're talking 8 or 9 Porsches at their house. Like, I mean, people knew who they were. So I think that, you know, and growing up in church, it was kind of embarrassing. There was a class, Sunday school class for married couples and singles, but nobody for like divorce. I think
Yeah.
that she felt like she didn't fit. And I think that having a 2-year-old at the time, I think she thought nobody would ever really care for her again. And this is kind of coming from her, is when she met my brother's dad, he was very abusive. He was just, I don't remember a lot of that, but I do remember him getting mad one time and me calling the police and being like very, very young. I don't remember. I mean, I was 5 when they got a divorce. So I was younger than that, maybe like 4.
Yeah.
And I think he was very jealous of my dad, and just he would take things that he had sent her from Iran or different things and like, shake them in her face and make her watch them be thrown down and just this ugliness. And I think that at some point I thought, how does a woman like this, who's well educated, beautiful, comes from a great family, end up in a situation like this? I think that we always think like, oh, she must have had a bad background, or she must have, ran with the wrong crowd. And I don't think that was it. I think it was that he had some mental illness, and the mental illness wasn't, it was taken care of by medication, but then it's a cycle of once you feel like you're getting better, you take yourself off of medication.
Yeah.
So then that's when it would become really bad. And I remember they were separated when my brother was born. So I mean, it was a really fast marriage and a fast divorce, and I think that I just remembered her being so strong and thinking, how does somebody end up like that? Because she's so strong. And I think that well-educated and successful, she just finished her doctorate program.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's 61. I would not go back and get a doctorate at 61, but she's still that like just empowering woman. But I think that had a big impact on me. Not that I remember a lot of it, but I remember at some point you're curious. So you're asking questions of like, why did you and dad not work? Or why did you and Matthew's dad, because I really didn't remember much of living in the home with them. And I think my grandparents saw some red flags and were just kind of like, and she was working crazy hours being an RN. She was kind of night shift sometimes, so sometimes I would just stay naturally with my grandparents. And then my dad still kind of had visitation, and he was in Lynchburg. So at this time it was just easier for me to stay in Lynchburg a little bit. So I don't remember a ton, but I do remember just thinking, this is really, really sad. Now, my uncle, who is my dad's brother, was in my life more so than my dad. He was, he lives here, and not in Americus, but here in the U.S. My dad eventually, years later, went back to Iran, remarried, and has another daughter. So I have a sister that I've never met, but we've chatted and that kind of thing, just not anything, really, really deep, I guess, because it's a unique situation, But I think just looking at mom like that kind of just made me feel like different situations could happen to anybody. Yeah. And you just don't know all the time going in. And thank God she had great parents and a support system when she needed it, because some people don't.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, growing up and then being able to experience some of those things, you're in school, you find some people, that really kind of come around you, continue to give you value, continue to encourage you to take steps forward. You started going to church, Christianity to you. When did that feel like it became personal to you?
I think like my earliest memory is probably like 7th grade. I think that's when I found that group of friends. And I remember, that they just looked different. It wasn't that they like wore a cross necklace or like carried their Bible to school, but they were just so different and so confident and joyful. And you're just kind of like, where does that come from? And then they kind of invited me to church, which I'd grown up in church. I got saved at VBS one year. My aunt and uncle ran our children's program. My grandfather was a deacon. My mom, even though went through a lot of heartache, we were still in church. That was important. But I think that it became really personal during when you can look and see like something vivid in them, this joy that lives inside of them. And then they kind of invited me to a non-denominational church. And I think my mom was a little nervous at the time because we grew up Baptist. She just didn't, exactly know like, what does non-denominational even mean? But I think that it just became contagious. And then you became like this excitement was connected to serving other people and just being joyful within each other. And I think during that age, it's important that you you can be yourself around them. So like, I think that early on, that's the phase where a lot of people are experimenting. And I really wanted to be a virgin when I got married. I think that that was really important to me. So I think that coming alongside of you where you don't feel like the odd one out, but you completely have a group of people that completely understand that and support that too. I think, and that's something about like knowing your worth, you know, too. And I think they knew it and they were sharing it.
Yeah.
And I think that that was the time that I was like, this is something that's really real to me.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you've got great community, you've got great stability. You're kind of, you know, you're taking it through middle school, high school. Like, are you thinking about what do you want to be? You know, where are you going? Where do you want to go to college? Like what's kind of leading that? Like, do you see your future?
Right. I think that it's hard. I think I was one of those people that changed my mind a good bit. I think that because of seeing what my brother went through, because in that custody battle, I guess is what you could call it, was my mom really wanted my brother to be safe. And it got to an age where he really didn't want to go. But, you know, she still had to show up and he had to look at his dad and say, hey, I'm not going this weekend. And then we could get in the car and go home. Yeah. You know, and I think in that moment, I was kind of like, I really feel like I want to do something with law. I kind of want to do like be a lawyer or do something with that in the best interest of the child. And then I think as I, you know, just thought about the schooling and thought about all that. I really struggled in school. I had a learning disability. So I really struggled with just, I could read it, but comprehending what I was reading, I think was difficult. And it was like, okay, I'm reading each word for word, but not like all together. So I think that, you know, if you struggle with that, I was a straight A student, but I really had to work hard at that. I think that law seemed like, okay, that's a lot. Do I really want to do that? So then when I started kind of breaking it down, I was like, you know, most of the people like in the best interest of the child, there is a psychologist involved or a counselor that's meeting with them through play therapy and that type of thing. Is that something I want to do? So I kind of threw that out there. And then I kind of really was connected to my church. I love children's ministry. So I was like, maybe I want to do children's ministry. I don't know. Do those two kind of collide at some point? So I think that I was thinking of colleges. Now in Virginia, we don't have anything that I know of that was like the Hope Scholarship. So there was nothing like keeping me there. And I just remember like growing up, one of my childhood memories was like going to Tennessee a lot. We would go to the Smoky Mountains. We would go to like Pigeon Forge. It was a quick jump. Like that wasn't our family vacation every year, but it wasn't far. If you wanted to go school shopping, you were like, we could scoot over there and it's like a couple hour drive. So we would do that a lot. And I just remember being like, I love Tennessee. I just think Tennessee would be somewhere that I could see myself living if I wasn't in Virginia. So I think that naturally I was like, I wonder if there's schools in Tennessee. I mean, you know, so I remember I had a friend that was going to Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee. And she was like, come down and just stay with me one weekend and see what you think. And I came down, I stayed in the dorms with her, and I was just like, man, I really, really love this place. So I was trying to talk my parents into like just a parent weekend. You would have thought that I was like asking for them to take me to England and like, let's go meet the Queen, because they were very, I don't know if against it is a strong term, but like all my dad was thinking is like, we can write a check today for all 4 years at not a community college, but like a college that's in our hometown, kind of like a GSW. It was called Radford University. Or this same check would pay for like 1 year at Lee. Is that really what you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I just feel like my mom was like, let's just go, let's just do the parent weekend and let's just see where it leads. And I remember, you know, them giving this like grand speech. Of course, you know, looking back, you're like, yeah, they're trying to sell this. You know, but then I'm like, this sounds great. Of like, we just want to raise a generation that's going to serve, and we want to plant seeds. And I sat in on classes because I was like, okay, these psychology classes, there's a lot of different ways that can be taken. If I'm going to do this, I want to be in a Christian psychology class. Not that you don't hear the secular view, but I think that we, you know, our faith is important in that aspect. I don't think you can pull them apart. And I sat in on some of those classes because I was like, is it just like a cool class with a, you know, like a Christian twist? And I was just really amazed at the way they delivered the message. And my mom, you know, kind of heard everything. And I think that she kind of pulled my dad aside and was like, you just tell me if this is a no-go. Let's not talk to her about it. And my dad was like, I think this is perfect for her.
Oh, wow.
And, the student loans were going to be on me. I knew they could only do so much, but I knew that it was just such a calling that I wanted to be there. So that brought me to Tennessee. And I thought I would stay in Tennessee forever. I never thought I would move. I never had plans to move back to Virginia, but I didn't have plans to move to Georgia either. Yeah. I thought Tennessee would be it. I really love 4 seasons. I love cold weather. Adore cold weather. So Georgia wasn't in my top choice just because of the weather alone. So that's kind of what brought me to Lee. And then I majored in psychology and with an emphasis in like crisis counseling. And then everybody that graduates from Lee has like a theology minor, that we go through. Yeah. So that's kind of what moved me from Virginia, I guess.
That's awesome. So, okay, so you're taking that, you've graduated, or you're getting to that moment where you're about to graduate. What kind of jobs are you looking for, and how do you get connected to a pregnancy center?
Yeah, I don't think a pregnancy center was on my list at all, because I think that you always take personal experience, right? And like play it into what I want to do. And so I started working at a crisis intervention counseling center that was connected to a domestic violence home because of my mom's experience. Now my grandparents were fortunate to have finances to help us when we were in a time of need. Yeah. My mom also was an RN, so we weren't without anything, but this was a home for like, you literally do not feel safe in your house. And you don't have enough time to make a plan. Yeah. We've got to get you out of here, right? So they kind of came and spoke at Lee, and I had a couple of friends that were already working for the Domestic Violence Council, and I was like, I really love this. This is kind of what I think I want to do. Yeah. So I started working with them, and I actually started as a volunteer and really loved it, and had to do a ton of volunteer hours because I really wanted to vet you before you just kind of go in and with clients, you know. But I did more than I was even supposed to with my volunteer hours because I was so intrigued and so interested in it. College is great, but hands-on is just like, man, your eyes are so open. So I did that for, like my latter 2.5 years of college. So more of like my junior and senior year with my learning disability and kind of going to college. I wanted just to get my feet wet and keep my grades up. So I didn't work in my freshman or sophomore year. But and before we left, I'd met Jay. And he's kind of not the reason, but his Americus is home for him. Okay. So right before I left, I feel like we had like a moment of I was offered the director position at the Domestic Violence Council. And I really wanted that. It was a great honor to be offered that because I was freshly graduated. Yeah. But God had other plans to bring us to Americus. So I gave that up, and it was really sad in the moment because when I moved here, I wasn't able to get involved as quickly with a nonprofit like that. Yeah. But that was kind of the reason kind of where I was in Tennessee and what I was thinking after college is I thought, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. And then God had other plans, of course.
Yeah. So what was the deciding factor if there was this opportunity but yet you're here in Americus?
Yeah, I think that Jay and I really wanted to pray about it because he loved his job and he was working in Blue Ridge at the time. So Blue Ridge and Cleveland, Tennessee are about an hour apart. And he was working for his best friend's business. It was the best of both worlds. I mean, we were both really happy, but I feel like, and looking back and kind of telling the story, it's kind of like, gosh, if you were both happy, why even pray about it? Like, why weren't you just, this is what we're going to do? But I think that we felt like God's like a GPS, right? Like we can go off track, but it's like recalculating. Yeah. So if God really wants you here, why run from it? Yeah. So I think that getting involved in a church was something we really, really wanted to do. We felt called to do. And I think that we wanted to do college ministry. So really what brought us to Americus was the opportunity to do ministry. Even though I had went to Tennessee for college. And those 4 years, I never really found a home church that I was connected to. The downfall with a Christian school is they have chapel. They have, twice a week we had chapel. We had Sunday night service. You really don't have to get involved if you don't want to in a church because you feel so comfortable with all these people that are your age going to chapel. So that kind of played into, I never really got connected with a church outside of that I really felt at home with.
Yeah.
So when we would come to Americus, we would visit Jay's parents' church, and we just really loved it. They kind of asked us, would you mind coming on staff and doing counseling here at the church? And then also doing, leading our college group. We're really wanting to start that up.
Yeah.
And I think that even though neither one of those positions were paid, we were like, let's do, like Jay and I were praying separate about it. We were praying together about it. I like to pray when I'm driving. So I was driving. We were both driving to Virginia on a trip, and I just start bawling because I feel like I heard with the Holy Spirit, like, you're supposed to move to Americus. And I think that it wasn't so much of like, oh, it's a terrible place, but I knew in Tennessee, I was already 4 hours from my home in Pulaski. So now this was going to move me 8 hours from my parents. And I think that was just a really hard, I never thought I'd move back, but I never thought I'd move so far that it would be like, this isn't a day trip anymore. This is like, it took me all day to get there.
Yeah.
So I think that realization, I pulled over the car, I'm just bawling. Jay gets out of the car and he's just like, was I following you too closely? Are you okay? Because he didn't know what I'd been, and I was like, the Lord wants us to move to Americus. And he was just like, really?
Yeah.
Because he grew up here, and I don't think he had plans to move back.
Yeah.
So we end up here, and I wanted to be married for a long time before. Kids weren't really at first were not in my agenda. Like, I wanted children maybe eventually, but Jay and I were long distance our entire relationship. So, although we were only an hour apart, he's 3 years older than me. So he was working full time. It's not like I can hop over an hour away anytime and we can have dinner.
Yeah.
So he was working a full-time job. When I was working at the Domestic Violence Council, our hours were weird because we did have a home. So, I mean, you're not off at 5. I would work until 10 o'clock at night and then go home. So we didn't get to see each other very often. It was all conversations or certain weekends. So I think that when we finally got married, I was like, I think I really want to be married for a long time and travel and enjoy you without having children. So we were married 8 years before we had kids. And, I think that when we moved back here, we were serving at the church, and then ended up leaving after a year, and we kind of just a natural move. I think that we found our church home, which is Cornerstone Church here in Americus. So we have served there for the last 11 years in college ministry, and then I've just kind of went into youth ministry a little bit now, but it's funny how, we waited a really long time to have children. That wasn't really something we had talked about or really thought about. And then when we were praying and really believing in the Lord to we were like, okay, I'm ready to start a family. And when I got pregnant, we were super excited. I mean, the question with everybody after you've been married for 2 years is, when are you going to have kids? I mean, people were tired of asking that question to us.
That's right.
Because we had been married 8 years. And then we found out we were pregnant, super, super excited. Jay was finally in a long-term job. He was finally kind of happy in his job. And I think that helped, a little bit more stability. Because he's an accountant. So he was just kind of looking for something that, it's hard in a small town when you're, coming back. But we got pregnant and then ended up having a miscarriage. And I think that impacted me more than I could ever say. I think that it was just man, especially, I mean, I have a heart for anybody that's had a miscarriage. I think it was so hard for me in the moment because it was our first child.
Yeah.
So in my mind as a woman, I'm just thinking, is this going to be time after time after time? Because I have friends that have had many miscarriages. And I just thought, oh gosh, it's not like I had one child and knew, okay, my body's okay, everything's okay. It just, this one time, this is what happened.
Yeah.
And Jay was actually serving on the board at Hands of Hope before we ever got pregnant. He was serving, I think he's been serving for 6 or 7 years now. So way before I've been there in February, it'll be 5 years.
Okay.
So a couple of years before I even got there, he just really had a heart for life and had a heart for serving these families. And So I think that he had shared, I don't know why, and maybe people watching this will completely understand, but for some reason you want it to be top secret.
Mm-hmm.
I was not willing to share my story with anybody. I told his parents and my family, like, we can talk about it within us, but I don't want anybody to know. I called my mom. She didn't know I was pregnant. And I was like, hey, I am like bawling. And I'm like, I've just had a miscarriage. And her words were, I didn't even know you were pregnant. She didn't even know we were trying, because I just didn't know how long it would take. And I didn't know what would happen. So I didn't really want people to ask if they didn't know. Yeah. So I remember at our church, even though we love our church family and love our pastors, like, I asked, could we speak to them? I like lock the door, I'm shutting the blinds, and I'm like, this is what happened, but you don't tell a soul. I can't have people coming up to me and saying, I'm so sorry. I don't think I can handle it. So Jay had shared our story with somebody that he worked with. And she had some previous miscarriages before. And she just kind of gave a card with a prayer, and it like a pamphlet it was kind of like in the what people say that isn't helpful, but they mean it out of love, is kind of what the pamphlet was. Yeah. And I think that each day I could read like one page. I mean, I could not get through all of it. And I remember like the last page, I kind of turned the pamphlet over, right? Because I'm like done reading it. I'm on my knees. This was kind of a devotion time for me, a prayer time. And I mean, the back of it had the Hands of Hope logo. And I was just like, I just remember in that moment, God was like, I'm planting a seed. There's more to this, but you don't know yet. And I just remember it was so impactful of like, I had no idea that a pregnancy center that talks about a crisis pregnancy center, or, that cared for women, even that had a miscarriage. I had no idea. And Jay served on the board. I mean, I went to fundraisers. I supported them. I just didn't know that that was something. And I think then it was like, I don't know what it'll take, but I want to be a part of that because I just had no idea. Yeah. And I think that I eventually told the Lord, like, after a year, I think it took a good year of like healing from it. That I told the Lord, like, if you give me a platform, I'll speak about it. I'll share my story. I think it's a little awkward now just to bring it up with friends and stuff because it happened, a year ago. And that was my choice, back then not to share it. I just think I could not. I don't think I could face people just feeling bad for me because I felt bad enough. I didn't want to keep reliving it. So I think that's what planted the seed for Hands of Hope. Now it took us, I guess, our miscarriage was in October, and we found out we were pregnant like February or March. So it wasn't of the next year. Okay. So I think that it's just fascinating how God works. Jay is always, he's an accountant. So he's always said God is a God of numbers. He fully believes that. He's like, there's a whole book in the Bible about numbers. Yeah. So it was just, our daughter was born, Madeline, in October. And that's the same, month that I had my miscarriage. And it was just like such a blessing to us. And I think that I always thought, I'm going to work outside the home. I'm going to work, this is what I want to do. I saw my mom do it. I don't think anything will ever happen to Jay and I, but I mean, thank God my mom worked and was able to support herself. And, and when we had her, it was like, I always tell people like the motherly instinct was hard, I think for me. It doesn't just flow out of me like it does some women. And, I think like it took us about 6 weeks to get it like, okay, I feel better. I feel like, the first 6 weeks I was like, Lord, I've got to go back to work. I feel like I'm not up. And then that second 6 weeks of maternity leave was like, oh my gosh, I can't leave. I can't leave her. I cried all the time. I could not. I was an emotional wreck, I think, because I finally had everything I asked God for and then was just having to let somebody else see all the milestones. Yeah. And I really struggled with that. But financially, we didn't see how in the world, we would be able to do anything different. But God just had a way that, I decided to start volunteering at Hands of Hope. It was something I really wanted. And then I was volunteering just a little while, and they were like, would you want to come on and staff? I know you want a flexible schedule, but would you just do 2 days a week? And I was like, I think I could do 2 days a week. That's a good outlet. I'm very extroverted, so it gives me some time away. Yeah. And some time with her. And it was just the perfect opportunity for that, I think. Yeah. That was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the Hands of Hope, for maybe those that don't know, tell us a little bit about what that is.
So it's a pregnancy resource center, and we're at our 4th location. So our final location right now is on 137 Thomas Drive.
Okay.
We're right behind Walmart and across from Parker's Heating and Air. And we help women with just referrals, with options counseling, with pregnancy tests. We have a baby boutique, so we supply like material assistance for families in need. We have maternity clothes, and we're kind of just depending on what they're looking for when they come in. We are like an educational platform. So we offer like children's classes on like milestones that your children should be reaching, birthing classes, potty training classes, but we also have financial class, like just different aspects of parenting. We have that. And then we have like an options counseling where we just kind of go over options on parenting and abortion and adoption. Yeah. And although we're, pro-life ministry, we don't refer or perform abortion. We still want them just to be educated and feel like they can make a decision that's best for them, and be able to just be a sounding board to walk that journey with them, that she's not alone, and that we just kind of want to slow down the process and let her think and speak freely, in a place that's confidential and super supportive and not judgmental, and just kind of walk that journey with her. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not educated on, the statistics and the demographics, but just in general, I mean, our pregnancy centers, like the Hands of Hope, I mean, do people feel welcomed in these environments, or are they still kind of taboo in a sense, like to people, or do they feel like, is it growing in a better light?
Yeah, I think that when we've been in Americus for 36 years now. And I think that when it was started by 2 women who had kind of heard about one of the first pregnancy centers. A lot of people don't know this, was in Columbus, Georgia, actually. Wow. Like the first pregnancy centers ever was in the state of Georgia. And some ladies from Americus had heard about it and kind of went down there and shadowed and just kind of was like, is there any way we could bring this to Americus? And for a while, it was actually in a building that a doctor here in Americus owned, and it was one of his rental properties. And he was like, I don't have anybody in there. Y'all go ahead and use it. And then it was kind of like a clothing closet. They were open just a couple of days a week, couple of hours a day, come in and get some material needs. We are willing to talk about options, but there wasn't like a whole educational based program yet. And then they moved out to like Martin Luther King, and were out there for several years, and then moved to Habitat. And I can speak from when it was at Habitat, because that's kind of when I got involved. That location had kind of become a where they had more of like classes, and they had more of as technology got better, it was easier to have just updated information, I guess, and going through that. So I feel like when I kind of came on board, I was an assistant to our director when I came on board in 2019. And back then, I feel like we were the best kept secret in America. So I feel like if you knew about us, maybe you felt comfortable coming in. We had to be careful kind of where we advertised. We didn't want people to get the wrong opinion. You don't want to be too pushy, but you want to also provide for the community. So I think that when I came on board, we were in a unique phase of like getting ready to move into our building now. Yeah. And through grants, we were able to buy our building. We're no longer like paying rent or anything like that. So the Georgia Baptist Healthcare Foundation bought our building and for us, and then we kind of moved in that direction. And I think when I came on board, I was an assistant, so I just wanted to stand back and really learn. And I was really interested, of course, with my past of being more on the client side of things, right? Like doing more of the counseling and that type of thing. And then I was 2 days a week. We hired somebody else that was 2 days a week. So now our director kind of had me one day, and then our other staff the other day. And I think that the side that I saw, because Jay was on the board also, was like, I don't feel like people know about us. I feel like our services can only be so great, and our materials and our advertising can only be so great because the funding is really low. And I think that my whole thing is, I think people will give. I think that we live in a generous community if they know the need is there.
Yeah.
So I think that I felt like there were a lot of things that I was like, I wonder if we could do this. But when you're running a center by yourself, our director before me and before Jessica, she was kind of our other staff person, was doing all of this, our advertising, our fundraising, our client services, everything at one time.
Yeah.
So you're one person. And I mean, their funding was very low. You're going off of volunteers. So when she kind of stepped down, and it was kind of given over to us in a hurry a little bit because she went through something just personal, and it was her time to step down. And I think that Jess and I came to the table and we're kind of like, okay, I was working 2 days a week.
Yeah.
She was working 2 days a week. Like, how are we going to do this? Because Kim was our stable. Like, Kim was wonderful, but she was there 4 days a week. Like, she was our director. We came alongside of her. So what does this look like in the process of us getting on board? And I just looked at her and was like, the board is going to ask us, do one of you want it? And I remember this was kind of during COVID. So it's a perfect storm, right? I mean, things are already complicated, but now we're losing our director. We had bought a building that's under construction at our location now. And I'm praying. We're not really even meeting in our church. Like, we're online.
Yeah.
So I'm praying about, like, Lord, what do you want it to do? At this point, Madeline's almost 1. So I'm like, okay, I feel like I can get out of the home a little bit more. And I just remember him saying, I just kept saying, I have availability in my schedule, but I don't know that I have the ability to take this over. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing. And I felt like the Lord was like, all I want is availability. You be available and I will provide everything else. So I kind of came back to work the next day and told Jess, and I was like, what if we did this together? And she was like, I think we should do that. So we presented it to the board. They were like, okay, so we can have 2, for the price of 1, because they're just going to take that director's salary and kind of split it up. And we kind of were like, okay, this is going to be yours. This is going to be mine. This is going to be yours. This is going to be mine. And I think that everything that Jess really loved was the client side. And I think that I was a little more excited to get into some of our fundraising, some of our networking, some of our public image kind of what people, kind of going back to your question of do they feel okay? I think that back then, I don't know, because we didn't do enough of it. But now, since I've been there, I think that outreach is a big portion of what we do, even though outreach all takes place outside of the center. I think that if you have an image outside of the center that's really welcoming, and really just honest and just really serving, then I think that it breaks down walls before they even come in the center.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that through that, we kind of, had never been done before. My position was kind of brand new. I was just like, okay, I used to work at a doctor's office. I feel like people love it when you come in and bring a treat and just say, hey, this is kind of what we provide, but here's a snack for you guys. So I kind of said, what if we, where are these girls that we want to break down that taboo that you're talking about? They're at OBGYNs. They're at urgent care. They're at the hospital. They're at a pediatrician's office. So we just Hands of Hope serves 7 counties: Sumter, Sly, Marion, Macon, Taylor, Webster, and Stewart. So those are a lot of counties for us to be so rural. I mean, there's distance in between those. Yeah. So we just kind of sat down and wrote every medical office that was in those 7 counties and decided we're going to do what I call like a cinnamon roll outreach. We had a lady who makes delicious cinnamon rolls. She's ex-Mennonite, and her cinnamon rolls are made from scratch and delicious.
Love it.
And we just decided, like, what if we went into these medical offices and said, hey, we're Hands of Hope. We've been praying for you guys. Here are some cinnamon rolls to just encourage y'all today. And these are our services that we offer. If you see people that are in need of our services, everything we offer is completely free to our community. Yeah. And I mean, it was just like, and of course, this is kind of still in a COVID time. These people were so open to receiving us because of the cinnamon rolls. Yeah, because of the cinnamon rolls, and because they had just been put through the ringer, to hear somebody saying, I'm praying for you, I want nothing in return, we just want to serve you guys, I think was a big game changer. Huge. So I think through that, we did that with the police department, we did it with the health clinics, we did it with the health department, all these places. So now we've kind of saturated a little bit of like who we are. That's awesome. But we want to meet clients too. So then during COVID, it was a perfect storm for like we had a ton of diapers. When people think of a pregnancy center, they think, I'm going to donate diapers. Our church is going to collect diapers. And we're like, that's the last thing we need. We have so many diapers. So we were at a point of like, what are we going to do? Like, we literally have no space. So what are we going to do? And one of our staff members was like, what if we did like a diaper giveaway? What if they didn't have to be a client? What if we just like handed out diapers? And we were like, that's crazy enough that it could work. So we decided, we called First Baptist. We knew that First Baptist and Americus had been used for like food distribution for Rotary and for the food bank here in town. And we were like, they have a good location and a big parking lot. What if we just did that? So in November, we're hosting our 4th diaper giveaway where they just come, we advertise, and there's no strings attached. Like, it's just, hey, we want to serve our community. So in those packs of diapers, there's kind of a flyer that says services we offer at no charge. Yeah. And I think the more and more you serve, the more and more you break down those walls of like, you do feel safe. This year we went and did the GSW. I think this is the 2nd or 3rd year we've done that. The GSW like community fair. Yeah. And I just wanted some really good merch. I love some merch. I think that brings people in. And, you know, the week after that, the amount of students we saw was unreal. You know, and some of them, when they get there, they're like, you were the first person I've said any of this to. Like, I haven't told anybody. I just want to take a pregnancy test and just see and kind of understand what my options are. Yeah. So I think that something that was taboo each day with us serving and doing different outreaches and doing different pastors' brunches, as you talked about, and just continuing to be really transparent with what we're doing. I think that helps people understand, like, I can come in, I know what the building looks like, I know what, you know, what their merch looks like, I've seen her face, I'm putting things together. Yeah. Now, is it still a hard conversation? Yeah. And do you still have people that call and make an appointment and they're like really gang-ho and then just don't show up because it's a hard conversation? Absolutely. Yeah. But I think that's just the ministry. You know, I think that's with anything. Our part is to meet them where they are. Yeah. Whenever they show up, and to pray for them if they don't show up, that somebody will point them to us, or that they find, you know, hope somewhere else. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, that's good. So as you're doing outreach and kind of marketing on that, and I think you've mentioned some of them, but what are some common misconceptions for people when they hear about what you guys offer? I mean, what comes to mind sometimes that's like, don't think that when you think about Hands of Hope, or when you think about this current, you know, our pregnancy center.
Yeah, I think that a lot of pregnancy centers, you know, I would say that most of them are Christian based. And I think that, you know, just like anything else we do, we're all human. And I think that we go at it with maybe the right heart, but wrong delivery, you know? So I think that I would say we're not a pregnancy center that is going to force her to change her mind. We're not a pregnancy center that is going to make her feel uncomfortable. You know, we were really mindful when we got this building, because before, you know, when you're a nonprofit, you kind of put everything that people donate. Oh, I cleaned out my house and this is what I had. And, you know, it's a makeshift like thrift store, you know, kind of look. And I think that when we got the grants and had the money to make this what it was, we really wanted to be intentional with what was going on the walls, what was going, you know, so we just decided not to put any scripture on the walls to make her feel comfortable. We didn't want her to say, oh, this is way Christian and I don't feel comfortable, you know? So I think that I've been in places before where, you know, they're handing out pictures of aborted children there, you know, and that is not our delivery. I think that we want her to make the best decision for her, because at the end of the day, she has to live with that decision. And whatever decision she makes, we want her to have felt empowered and encouraged and educated. That's kind of our 3 like terms that you'll hear us say a lot. And that we're here to walk the journey, whatever you choose. Is it our hope? Do we believe abortion hurts women? Absolutely. But, you know, the Lord doesn't push himself on us. And we want to just kind of be really respectful of her. And I think that a lot of pregnancy centers, and I say this a lot, are all about their numbers, or all about how many babies they saved that year. To us, if you can meet her where she is, the baby comes with it, right? Like, but she's the one carrying the baby. You know, we want to meet her where she is and kind of find out what can we do to walk alongside of you? Is there a piece of this puzzle that we could play? Or what's making you feel like this is the decision that you need to make? And just have a really raw conversation. And sometimes it looks like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes she comes in with a lot of medical questions, and we're not a medical center. We have partnering centers that are medical and that can do like an ultrasound. So sometimes if she comes in and she's just really worked up and really has a lot of medical questions, really wants to have an ultrasound, see where she's at, then of course we're going to address that first.
Yeah.
That's our first priority. And then we'll make a follow-up visit if she feels comfortable. But I know that when I met with somebody one time, she is post-abortive, and she told me, I wish that I knew that this place existed, because if I had had one person tell me, I think you can do it, I really think you can do it, and we will walk alongside of you, I would have made a different choice. And I think that, you don't forget conversations like that, and I think that the beauty of our center is there are, I would be sitting here lying to say that, oh, everything changes when they get in that room. They choose life every time, because that's not the case. But I think that the neat thing is the relationship is stronger than anything else, because sometimes, she's like, I do have an abortion appointment. I just wanted to come in and talk to you guys before I went. And we're like, do you feel comfortable us calling you and just checking on you in a few days, And every time she answers that phone and has this open conversation of like, can I come in and just kind of talk about where I am now? Or can I, and absolutely, God made us to be relational. I mean, he never gives up on us. So one of the services we offer is like post-abortive counseling. And we have a partner that we do that with. And then we have volunteers that are post-abortive that came onto this ministry and have a love for this ministry because they never found anything like this. So I think that we just want to be really gentle and really loving. And that there's nothing that's going to surprise us, I guess, but there's also nothing that's going to make us be like really judgy, because we just want to walk alongside of you in whatever that means and answer any questions that you have. And we want you to feel loved, because a lot of these people don't have a huge group around them. If they did, the outcome may look a little different. So I think that so many people, when we call, I think that we balance, like, should we call? We don't want to be too pushy, but we want to check on them. We want them to know that we care. So many of them are like, nobody ever calls me just to check on me. Thank you for calling me.
Yeah.
And I mean, you wouldn't believe, that's hard to understand, because I'm sure your phone and my phone blows up all day long. I'm like, Mom, I'm good. I'll call you later. I'm trying to get the girls in bed. But that's not always what we see. Yeah. We do see some of that. Not to say that all of our clients look like this type of cookie cutter, but I think that you want them to feel loved and you want them to feel valued. Yeah. So we're in it for them,
I love that. And I'm very thankful when we had a chance to hear about the services that you guys provide, and just, again, hoping to connect very soon, even on a personal level. So you talk about it being a nonprofit. You talk about it being Christian-based. Obviously, it has to be funded. Let's talk a little bit about how it's funded, and then I would love to talk about a particular event that you guys put on every year called Hope Loud. So let's spend a few minutes just kind of talking about how funds are raised, and then tell me a little bit about Hope Loud.
Yeah, so we are a nonprofit, a 501c3. We don't take any government funding. When you've heard me talk about grants, it's been a private grant. We've had grants through like the Sumter EMC Foundation. We've also had, Flint Energy's grant before, because there's not red tape with like sharing the gospel in those type of grants, where government grants can be a little tricky with that. We are kind of supported by individuals and churches and then businesses on like a monthly basis, or, a one-time gift. So that's kind of how we are funded. I think that when I came on board, again, it was kind of COVID. We were looking, every year we would host this big banquet. That's what we called it. It was like you would have a guest speaker, and then you would have a nice meal, and you would buy a table. So the tables you would buy a table, and then you would invite 7 guests to fill the table, including yourself. Yeah. And then we would have a good speaker, and then we would take up a love offering. And then that was kind of our big fundraiser. Well, during COVID, I think that we were like, how are we going to do that? You don't want to leave your caterer hanging, and I don't want to book somebody that isn't going to get funds afterwards because everybody's dropped out.
Yeah.
You also don't want people to come and just say, hey, I'm going to pass on the food. I just don't feel comfortable with that right now, and then waste. And I think that what I would see is you would have people with great intentions. You would have different banks in our area buy a table because they wanted to support the ministry, but they didn't have 8 people that were coming out. So I would look at our banquet and I would see 8 plates of food and then maybe only 2 people represented. People have great intentions. The heart of giving was right, but you're wasting all of this, money and food. And I think that I had talked previously about Jay and I being involved in college ministry. One thing that I just have a huge heart for is Passion Conference. It takes place in Atlanta with Passion City Church. And it's like your biggest collegiate gathering. You're talking like 20,000 people all together. And I think that experience is like nothing else. And I think that I had just kind of gotten back from that and was just really praying. I leave Christmas decorations up in my house for ages because it takes me so long to take them down. So this is like February. And I'm praying because the board is kind of wanting to know what our next step is for this banquet. And I'm just like, me and Jess have gone back and forth talking about it. And I'm like, I just don't know that we can do it this year. I don't think people are going to come out for a guest speaker with no meal. The meal is kind of the draw.
Yeah.
And then the guest speakers have all been like local speakers. So it hasn't been like, oh, wow, I don't want to miss that. Good speakers, but it's not like a name that people are familiar with necessarily when you're selling these tickets. The name isn't doing it, like bringing people in, I guess. So I kind of had this wild idea of, I was praying and I was just like, man, I wish what I experience at conference, like that freedom in worship and just that pointing everybody back, because there's so many denominations that are represented at conference. And it's so freeing because you're all worshiping together. What if we could bring something like that to Americus? And what if it wasn't put on by one church? What if it was like, as a nonprofit, this is what we're going to do? Because we have churches that already support us on a monthly basis from every denomination. Yeah. So what if we were to bring in those people and kind of have this night of worship? And Jess was like, I love the idea, but what does that even look like? And I was like, well, there was this guy last time at conference named Sean Curran, and his heart for worship is just, I've grown up in church. I've sat under some great worship leaders, but he just takes the cake of just being really raw and being really honest before the Lord. And just, I think that when he leads, you feel something that you haven't really felt before. And some of it is like when you gather with all those people, you feel something, right? Yeah. Because you're all kind of going towards Jesus together, but there's something in him that's like, his worship is not contingent on mine. He's going regardless. He's not going to miss out on what God has for him. He'd love for you to join him, but he's not going to hold back and continue just to be a dead horse and encourage you to lift your hands if you don't feel comfortable doing that because he's already there. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, he's a worship leader at Passion City. He also kind of is a solo artist. He wouldn't be too hard and he would represent us so well because, you're also putting somebody on the stage that's not you representing Hands of Hope. So I was like, I think this would be really, really neat. What we would do is we would have sponsors for the event. So all these different businesses that are willing to buy a table, but maybe not necessarily show up at the banquet, they can just sponsor. There's no strings attached. You just pay that sponsorship and we'll do some free advertising for you during the concert. And I was just like, but I don't have a musical bone in my body. So I literally don't know what it would take to make this work. I'm like trying to track down where Sean is, if he'd be interested in this. What the cost of something like that is. So I go to the board and I'd kind of, after like 100 emails, finally gotten in touch with like, okay, this is his rider. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that is like everything that you have to provide during the show. And it was pages. I was just like, dear Lord, what am I doing? And I remember reaching out. I was like, okay, I'm going to reach out to Rodney Poe. He's with Central Baptist. He's their worship minister. Great guy. And Central at this point had done a couple of concerts. So I knew I'd gone to some of them. I knew that he was familiar with like what it would take when you bring an artist here, what you're responsible for, and I'd kind of talked to the artist, the manager, saying like what it would cost for him to come. Yeah. And so I go into a board meeting and I'm just like, I think this is what we should do. This is what I feel like the Lord wants us to do. I've just had blinders on. I think that the Holy Spirit can just be very persuasive if you're meeting with him. And I mean, it was just like this push of like, we have to do this. It's not about me anymore. It's just, I just feel like everything is kind of lining up, and I just feel like we have to do this. So, but we had never paid anybody. We've never paid a dime except for the catering, and that's normally covered by the cost of your plate. Yeah. So our speakers, we give a nice gift basket too, and they donate their time. And I was about to walk into a board meeting and be like, hey, so what would it take for us to have like $6,000 and put it towards this that may or may not work? And of course, none of them in the room have heard his name. Yeah. So I'm asking for money for somebody that nobody knows anything about. And Jessica, my co-director at the time, she was like, I think what we're asking is just for them to allow us to continue to walk through the doors that the Lord has opened. And I was like, I don't know that they're going to go for this, and we have all different ages on the board. Our center is kind of run by 8 board of directors. Yeah. And the oldest man in the room, Mr. Jimmy Chapman, he is just an influence in my life and such a light. He was like, I think that we should walk through this door. And I mean, he's in his 80s. So I thought he's really going to be the one, because he just is always like, if you've got the heart for it, you'll do it for free, Yeah. So I just was kind of like, he's going to be the hard one. And he was like, I think we should do it. And I was just like, oh my word. So I just kept telling Jess, I was like, if this fails, what happens? Like, we're out. This is supposed to be a fundraiser. We're out like $6,000. And she was like, but if it doesn't, are you going to take credit for it? And I was like, well, no, it's all the Lord. And she was like, well, then if it fails, it's all the Lord too. You can't pick or choose. And I was like, okay, you're right. So we decided to sell tickets for $25. We did this sponsorship idea, and we signed a contract with Sean. And 2 months later, we had our first Hope Loud. Now, fundraisers before that at the banquet had brought in 10 to 14,000 was kind of what we had brought in before. And Hope Loud, our first year, brought in 32,000. Wow. I mean, God showed up in a mighty way. It was incredible. We had it at Central Baptist, and Rodney came on board and kind of ran sound for me. I asked my worship team from my church, like, hey, can y'all throw something together? I'd asked our music minister, Stacy, hey, do you think you could put something together for me? This is like when I'm filling out the paperwork for Sean. We just have to put if an opening act's going to be there. I think she thought at the time, like, if you get to that point, yeah, we'll do it. Yeah. So when I called her and said, he signed the contract, we're good. I think there was a minute of even my husband was like, this is never going to happen. I mean, I think that he just thought, Amanda, honey, these people don't know you. I mean, you have to list, on this writer, you have to list, who you've booked in the past, what kind of budget you have, what your sound equipment looks like. Do you have backline? Can you provide these instruments? Literally, it's like, no. I mean, I was like, I've got nothing but the Lord on my side, so let's see what happens. And it was just an amazing, amazing time. So year 2, we kind of revisit Hope Loud and decide to have Sean back. And we're kind of out of that COVID season. So we're hoping for a better turnout, and just kind of word has gotten out, a little bit more. People really loved the logo for Hope Loud. So we decided to do kind of a merch table and just kind of have fun with it. We hosted it at Central again, and it was a lot of fun. And that night, I shared my story. I shared my story about my miscarriage. And I think that when the Lord spoke to me and was like, I really want you to share it, because I kind of, at the concert, it is a concert, but I kind of give an update a little bit about the center. And we have a time to give. And I remember the Lord bringing back to my mind, I was like, do you really want me to share it? Is this the time or place? Because I'm okay sharing it now. I remember when I started volunteering at Hands of Hope, I told you I would not share it with anybody. It was top secret. I walked in there as a volunteer, and somebody said, what made you want to volunteer? And I shared everything. I felt so at peace, and the Holy Spirit just reigned in that place that I was like, I feel like I have nothing to hide. Yeah. And then, so, the Lord's like, I want you to share your story. And I was like, what? And I remember him saying, you said if I gave you a platform to stand from, you'd do it. And you have the stage at Central, so I want you to share it. Yeah. And that's kind of what I said in that night. I told the Lord, and now I'm standing on this platform before you, and I told him, if you gave me a platform, I'd share it. Yeah. So it was just cool how that happened. So after that night, we had multiple people that came up to us or wrote into us and said, I have a story, I want to share it with you. Or, hey, I want to come by the center, I want to be involved. And I think that what I loved about Hope Loud was it was an opportunity for outreach. It was an opportunity for community. It was an opportunity for fundraising. It was also an opportunity to get our name out there, where the brunch, you didn't really hear about it, or the banquet, you really didn't hear about it unless you ran in that circle. We didn't make flyers and put them up around town like we do Hope Loud. It was kind of like I would call you and say, hey, John, I just wanted to invite your church to this. The tickets are $25 a piece. Let me know how many y'all want.
Yeah.
You know, so it was the same group of people coming every time. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I just kept thinking in this search for, Lord, what do you want to do? I kept feeling like we're missing out on that younger generation.
Yeah.
Because people that are coming to a pregnancy center banquet are all older people. There's nothing wrong with that. But you didn't look around the room and see the college kids that I ministered to at my church. You didn't see the youth groups. And I think that's kind of the inspiration came from Passion, because there were so many young people. And then I forgot to mention this, but the second year that we did it, we raised $42,000.
Wow.
And we decided to make the concert free that year. So we didn't take $25 a ticket. We just made it completely free. Our board and us kind of said, if it brought in what it did the first year, let's not limit God. If we really want people to hear about the gospel and have this type of experience with us, let's just make it free. What are we worried about? And we did. And I actually think the second year we were like 42,000 with sponsorships. I think end of the night we were like 48,000 that we brought in. So
awesome.
it's just been a God thing. It's been so cool. I feel so honored that God has allowed me to be a part of that. Because if you talk to anybody, you're like, you're not going to talk to her without her bringing up Hope Loud. She just has a heart for it. I have a heart for worship. I think that when we stand before the Lord in worship, the chains that once hold us can no longer have any type of hold on us. And I think that when you think about the center, when you get in and you're, there are no chains. You know, I said we don't put like scripture on the walls, but in one of the intake rooms, it says, here's where I lay it down, every doubt and every lie. Or every doubt and every fear, something like that. And it's like, okay, we just want, you know, that comes from a song that I love, but they don't know that. And I just want them to be able to put that aside and be able to kind of talk to us. So this year, we're super excited. We have kind of gotten our Hope Loud team together and just really prayed about what God wanted to do. We expect him to move. It's all about him that night. So we are taking it to the Rylander. I am super excited about the opportunity. There's something just emotional to me about being able to bring the gospel to the center of our hometown. I think downtown is beautiful. I think that I love Central Baptist. I love Rodney. I love their team. They've been generous every year to let us do it there, but it is a really big facility. So even if we have a large crowd, it looks kind of empty. We wanted something a little more intimate this time. So we're doing it at the Rylander. We're doing it as a Christmas concert this year.
Love it.
So it's going to be free. Still, we're just offering it free for the community. So Blanchard Photography is going to be there. She's one of our big sponsors this year. She's volunteering her time. Santa's going to be there. We have a gift for all the kids that come in, that just a gift from them. And then we're kind of partnering with downtown for some special like Christmas treats and Christmas giveaways to everybody that comes, along with some little savings cards that we'll kind of have for the community. So I think I think this is the perfect time. Is just to I love Sean's coming back this year. I kind of really toyed with that idea, but I thought maybe if it's Christmas, it's going to look a little different anyway. And then we're going to kind of share the Christmas story, and just have that opportunity for people to come in and it just be free and be in a place like the Rylander. I think a lot of people haven't gone to a lot of shows there. So to be able to sit there and see it, I think is really powerful. So we're super excited to see what God does there. I'm excited about that.
I love it. Yeah. It's so great to see your heart. We talked about the value even before we started, just the value of servanthood and just being selfless. And it's amazing to see not only how people can come around that and want to see that flourish, but God's hand is upon it as well. Yeah. And that's the great thing is, in a day and time where people may not feel like God is real, and that God doesn't exist, and yet you're able to tell these stories. There has to be at least some form of, maybe I haven't been looking hard enough, or maybe I've been distracted. But these stories help just kind of continue that thread of you're making claims that you're hearing from the Lord, and God's providing great things. And so that's just always exciting. And then again, the benefit is not necessarily that the night goes well, but that people are continuing to be provided for throughout the year.
Absolutely.
With these conversations, be able to hear their, be educated, be resourced out, and that more people get a chance to hear about it even in the surrounding county. So thank you so much for that. And I want to spend just a few minutes just talking about, in light of there's just kind of the future of Americus as well. Our thought process is we want to neighbor well together. So what does it look like in the next few years as we look towards Americus, kind of where it is now? Where are some things that you feel like that are exciting as far as Americus, and what are some potential challenges that we just need to be aware of as neighbors?
Yeah, I think that we, I don't want anybody to hear this and think, oh man, she's just super spiritual, because I think that with the conversation that's taken place when Hope Loud happened and it was so big and God just did it, I think that as a Christian, I looked back and thought, how many times has the Holy Spirit asked me to do something? And if I was obedient, it could have been a Hope Loud story. I think that even as a Christian, you look back, so to Christians and non-Christians, you look back and think, how many times did God put a seed in me that I was too busy? It was a wild idea and I thought, God, that's never going to happen. And kept going, because I think that I was so hungry for it. And I was in a place of being desperate to hear from him because I didn't have the gifting, but it was just unique. So I think that, us kind of turning back to the one that created it all, because he created relationships, I think helps. But I think that kind of this golden ticket idea that we have with Hope Loud of like partnering with all the businesses downtown and providing a service, I think is kind of on that. I think it's we have nothing to gain from it. We have we have a few giveaways to give away, but it's been a lot of work on our part to say, hey, would y'all like to supply like a really cool giveaway and then some type of coupon that we could do? We're going to do all the work. We're going to collect all your logos. We're going to collect all the information. We're going to put this together and make it look nice and represent you all, because I feel like if our community is thriving, so are we. People are a lot more, I think a lot of people give because we have a special place in their heart, obviously. They have a special place for this ministry. But I think also when things are going well and you're thriving and your business is thriving, it's a lot easier to say, hey, we'll throw in some gift cards this year. We want to really be a part of that. It's easier. So I think in a sense, this was a unique idea, but we wanted to say, hey, what you guys are doing is meaningful for us. Yes. And we appreciate that you serve. I appreciate that my favorite place to shop is now in Americus. It's not, I don't have to go to a fancy boutique in Albany because, I enjoy shopping at Lily's, which is here in town. And I think just, having just all these places to eat and all these like different things, I think that we want to bring excitement to the community. So I think that partnering with them when we're not really getting any benefit from it, it is a benefit of saying, hey, I got to go in and introduce myself. I got to go in and say, we would love to do this for you guys if you want to participate in it. And at first I think I thought, are they really going to want to do this? How many places downtown really want to offer a coupon or a discount? It's the holidays, but all of them were so like, oh, this is such a cool idea. We'd love to be a part of it. And I think it took me like getting out of my comfort zone a little bit. And some of it is networking, obviously, but I think some of it is just being a good neighbor, coming in, and maybe I don't get anything out of it besides serving you, but now you know who I am and we've partnered together. And I think that one thing that just, is on people's mind is like, really, are all those businesses, they really believe in what you do? And I can't say that. But I think that if once they look around our community, they are thankful that there's a place that has resources, right? They may not align with us in every aspect of what we do. But I think that if they go to Walmart or they go downtown to eat or they, volunteer a little bit at the food pantry, they see the need for a resource center here. So I think that we can all agree on that. Maybe our beliefs with it are a little different, but I think that we can all agree like, hey, we want to bring more to our community. And that just means us playing a really strong part in that. So I think that for me and for Hands of Hope, Jay and I are both in Rotary. I really enjoy that. That's something I just joined this year. And it's been neat to gather with all of those kind of leaders in our community around a table and have lunch and get to know them a little bit more and know where Americus is going and how they can help. Now I feel like when I need something, selfishly, I now know who to call or who to pick their brain about it.
Yeah.
I was
absolutely.
thinking about the Rylander, and I thought that stage is gorgeous, but it's huge. Who has used that stage over and over again that I could pick their brain about?
Yeah.
And a friend came to mind, and I thought, okay, I'm going to ask her, like, what do you do? And I love that about Americus is that we don't know each other. Like, we know each other to the point that we are really kind and say hey to each other when we see each other out. But I don't know her family dynamic. I don't know what her home church is. I don't, but I felt comfortable just being a neighbor and saying, hey, could we meet for coffee and I just pick your brain? And I think that's the beauty of Americus is you feel like I may not know them personally, but I know them through the grapevine. And maybe I feel like I could be involved with that. And maybe I could help them and they could help me. Shannon is helping us with Hope Loud. Yeah. So the Friday before Hope Loud is the downtown open house, first Friday, I guess. Not downtown open house, first Friday. And she's going to do a photo shoot. And I was like, hey, why didn't me and my team come? And why don't we just help? And she was like, really? And I was like, yeah, we'll throw on some t-shirts and come down here and just help you do this, And of course, this is how she makes her living, but we just want to come and just serve. We want to be a part of it. So I think that I'm excited because we're breaking ground in that. We've had to get a lot of in-house stuff together, obviously, to be able to reach out. But I think that this is a great place to live. I was listening to Mary Beth's story when she interviewed with you, and she said something like, people ask, well, why would you move to Americus? And her question was, well, why wouldn't you? Yeah. And I think that that's where I am. I think that I didn't come into Americus, 12 years ago with this same outlook. But I think that, the Lord grows you spiritually and matures you. And, thank God that he offers forgiveness and grace every day because I need it. Yeah. And I think that it's just helped me to grow in being a better neighbor. The more I grow in him, the better I can be as a neighbor. As far as where Americus is going, I would love selfishly from the standpoint of what I work in every day for us to just have some really good OBs. And I think that midwives are great. And I think that I've heard wonderful things about our midwives, but you do in a sense of somebody that had a miscarriage before, I kind of wanted to talk to my OB. I just wanted to kind of know our plan of action and what would happen and what was in the best interest of me. And, I think that sometimes you want somebody that follows you throughout your pregnancy, and somebody that you can kind of have that conversation with. And I've been really lucky. A lot of people would say, well, does it really matter? Because your OB is not necessarily the one that delivers. Well, I guess it just depends. If you're not overran, my OB delivered both of my girls. So I think that would be like, I wish that we could bring some families in that really want to plant here and really want to, either open their own practice or get involved with our hospital or whatever that looks like to just provide some services that aren't so far away. Because, when people ask me, well, where would you go or where do you go? I use Columbus a little bit for my OB at least. And then I go to Albany for some things. So I think that, my hope is that we could bring that here. Yeah. I think that we have some great dentists. We have some great eye doctors. We have some great regular doctors. I just think we really lack in that OB, that specialty area. So I would love to see some families plant here and really want to just invest because it is an investment. When you move to a place like this, you want to be involved in the community. That's what's going to make it thrive. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that would be my, what I would hope. And then just having some places that are open a little bit later. I think that, as an adult, once our kids go to bed, it's easier for grandparents to kind of come and just kind of hang out because they can just kind of sit and then you go grab coffee with friends. Yeah. Or go, and it's like everything just closes so early here. And I get that. We've got to have the community to help them stay open, right? Yeah. So I think just bringing people here that want to invest in our community. I think that that's where I hope that we're headed. I think that we are. I think that you've had some great people that represent Americus on here. And kind of we're all pointing in one way of wanting growth. Yeah, absolutely. Expecting it. Absolutely. And there seems to be a wave that's coming. And so hopefully we can capitalize that on as a community and support that and continue to engage. Right. And other people would see that and value it. And like you said, come and just find a place here, find a home here as well. Yeah. So, well, listen, we got a few more minutes. I would love to just quickly do some what we call rapid fire questions, just to get a chance to get to know you a little bit more on just some random topics. And so I'll just ask you a few of these and just kind of just what comes off the top of your head. No, it doesn't have to be super deep or anything like that. But let me ask you,
If you could have dinner with any historic figure, who would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. This is a crazy answer. I would say Pocahontas. I'm a big Pocahontas fan. I just love her history and her story. It's not a long one, but my husband would die out laughing because we go to Disney and I'm like, where is Pocahontas? I have to see her. She is like, and she came to Jamestown and all that and Virginia. So I think that would be my answer.
I love that. Okay. All right. And being a person that loves music, what's a song that you can't help but sing out loud to?
Oh, goodness.
I mean, it just comes on and you're all in.
I'm trying to think. My husband probably can answer this better than me. What song comes on that I'm... I don't know. Okay, I'm a big Rush Hour fan.
Okay.
And that war, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. I don't know why.
You're just in it. You're there.
That movie comes back to my mind, so I just sing it, and he just thinks it's funny.
I love that. I love that. What was the last movie that you watched and enjoyed that you loved?
I love The Greatest Showman.
You know what? I love that movie too.
I do love that movie.
I think so good. We got the soundtrack and everything.
Yes, the music in it just is like maybe one of those songs is a song that I can't help but sing too.
That's good.
Maybe that.
That's good. We got so into it, we started watching like all the backstories and watching all this, and we're just like crying and weeping and like, oh my gosh, yeah, it was
us too. It was so good.
It's something I didn't think that I wasn't, because it was a musical. I didn't think I was going to like it, and I was like, this is it.
Yes,
if this is what
I'm not a musical person, but like a musical isn't a movie type of person, but it was
absolutely.
good. Absolutely. It was good.
Awesome. All right, what was the worst job that you ever had?
Oh, Lord. I don't know. I haven't had a ton of jobs. I don't know that I've had a bad job.
Okay.
I don't know that I've had a bad job.
That's
I don't
good.
know that I...
You wouldn't classify it that way.
No. I think I learned something from every one of them.
I love it.
So I don't know that I've had a bad one.
Okay. If you could be an expert of anything new right now, what would it be?
Oh, gosh, technology.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I struggle. I have people that make us look real good at Hands of Hope because they love our logo. They love our social media post. I wish I could say I was behind that. Sometimes I have the idea, but I can't. I'm like, can you tweak? Can you turn? Does it do that? Can that happen?
Yeah.
Or can this photo like shake? In a photo, and they're like a boomerang. I'm like, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do that.
Do that. Yeah.
Do
I
that.
can give leadership guidance in that, but I can't make it happen.
Okay. What do you do to relax? What is something that you like to do to relax?
I think I love to get coffee and just kind of either read a good book or just kind of go around, not necessarily shop, but just kind of look or like hang out with friends. I am a people person, so I don't like to necessarily just unwind by myself. I probably want, as an extrovert, I want all my people around me.
Yes.
A lot,
Okay. Is there any place that you would love to travel?
I do. I've been twice, but I love London. There's just something about it. So probably going back. I've always wanted to go to Hawaii. So maybe one day. I think that's on everybody's bucket list. But London was kind of, it's my husband and I's like happy place. We just love the speed of it and the laid backness of Europe, I think.
Yeah, those are some good. That is a good place. I was actually born in Germany, so I got to spend a little bit of time there. Probably thinking I was about 7 before we came to the States. So military family. So
neat.
I love it. Are you a morning person or a night person?
Ooh, I feel like I was a morning person before I had children.
Okay.
After I had children, I became a night owl because once they're in bed, you feel like you get the second wind and can get like everything done.
Yeah,
and you have to fit it all in before they get up in the morning. So I think that I was I used to be perky and could get up at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever time you needed me there, I could be there.
Yeah.
I can still do that. I just may not have that I used to have, that little perk in my step. But so I guess a night owl now.
Okay.
The children forced it.
Well, Amanda, thank you so much for coming and being a part of the podcast, getting a chance to hear a little bit of your story, telling us a little bit about this great great program that we have here with so many resources. This Hands of Hope, what's it called?
Hope Loud.
Hope Loud, and this great event. We look forward to going and participating as well, and just continue to be faithful to do what the Lord's telling you to do, and we obviously get a chance to benefit from that. And as you're blessed, you keep blessing others, and so thank you so much for what you do for this community.
Absolutely, so. I have a great team and people that are gifted, and they come alongside of me and say, I may not be able to do exactly this one thing, but I can do this. And I think that is what it's all about, like just putting people where they're gifted. And I tell my team all the time that they make me look really good because they are so amazing and their hearts are to serve. And I think that when you get a group of people that really have that at the core, I think that it shows. Yeah. It shows. So,
well, when you empower people and you let them thrive, they do their best. And that's part of what you do is you empower people. You are empowered. You empower people. You schedule people. You help people get to where they're their best, and they show out, and everyone benefits from that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Thank you so much for what you do.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right. I think we're good.